Okay. Test 1, 2, 3.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the February report. East Tampa Community Redevelopment Area Community Advisory Committee meeting. My name is Craig Fox. I'm the Vice Chair of the CAC, and I'll call this meeting to order. We're just going to start again first with the roll call. Ebony DeCosta here, to say present.
Present.
Ebony DeCosta.
Present.
Renee Gaines. Kimberly Hedlund. Eileen Henderson. Dr. Jeffrey Johnson. Frank Jones. Paulo Stelosa. Fran Tate. Diane Ziegler.
Present.
Cedric Harrington. Dana Lazarus. Mimi Martinez. I'm missing.
We have two more,
Sorry.
Natalie Hawthorne and Miss Andrea White, the two new additions to the East Tampa CAC.
We're now going to open up for public comments. So if you do have a public comment, please step to the microphone. And we ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes. Just announce your name, and then we go ahead. We have a timekeeper, Ms. Franklin, so you got timekeeper. Okay.
Good evening, Allison Hewitt, resident and business owner. I have shared with you my comments about the items on the agenda. Thank you, Ms. Kate, for forwarding the agenda so I can prepare. These are comments and concerns. They are not for or against anything. This is about the process and making sure we're clear about the process and the evaluation utilizing the CRP. So the first thing on the presentation, the special projects grant. Wanted to make sure that under page 14 and 15 of the East Tampa CRP, addressing the targeted industries. In your presentation, it says the targeted industries, but it did not say the additional information about the required commitments for the highways permanent jobs. Want to make sure that that is taken in consideration or clarified as we get to the point of making the decision. Also on page 6, item number 4, and especially project criteria. It's ineligible projects as bars, lounges, clubs, restaurants deriving more than 50% of their income. Just want to make sure that we're clarifying as we see our lounge does kind of fall within the criteria of the special projects grants, and a clear explanation provided to you and the public on how that applies. Under land assemblage, Lake Avenue. One of my concerns there is maintenance, the Gator building. This tree that fell 2 hurricanes ago and broke the fence is still there. It is still living, and there are operations and issues where code enforcement are coding and citing property owners. Well, we are as a CRA and property owner, and we need to make sure that we are the best partner we can be with making sure that the land that CRA owns is clean as well, not overgrown. 23rd Street land assemblage. Just want to draw to your attention in the East Tampa CRP, page 26 and 27. All of this is included in what I presented to you. Under land acquisition, it should be discussed that in the CRP, the acquisition is the last step, and to make sure that you're working with the property owners. As we have talked about, mitigating gentrification should be one of our priorities. We would keep our landowners as much as possible, and to make sure that we ask the question that have we worked with the property owner to make sure that they can keep their property and make it something that is beneficial to the community. So in your packet, I have included
10
pictures.
seconds.
Taking pictures, so it was taken today, the pictures are in your packet. I also want to make sure that as we are going through the CRP and updates, that we understand that the ordinance, CRP is updated. Just read that.
Yes, thank you, Madam for your comment.
Thank you.
All right, does anybody else have public comment? Once we're done with that person, then we'll go to online.
Good evening. My name is Eva McCaffrey. I just want to encourage you to pay attention, not to just the projects that come before you. Many of you have not even been trained, don't know rules of order, sunshine, any of that haven't been trained. And the priorities of East Tampa hasn't even really been established amongst this body. Many of you so-called represent neighborhoods. And if that's the case, have you spoken with your neighborhoods to say what the priorities are and should be discussed at this table? I also want to encourage you to pay attention to the people at the table. Habitat for Humanity has an individual that's represented on this board. And I want to remind you that not long ago, I had to go after Habitat, and I left articles over there for anybody that's interested. I had to make Habitat do right by homeowners where they took their home illegally and unethically, sold it to an unauthorized, non-credited lender, just horrible practices because they needed money. And now they're at this table knowing all the vulnerabilities in East Tampa. They know all the opportunities and all the money you have at this table. They're sitting here. So I want you to pay attention as decisions are made, pay attention as land is going forward, making sure that you make sure they are not able to vote when it's necessary. Because if they broke the law and did unethical, illegal practices before, I believe they'll do it again. Because nobody would have caught it unless somebody who didn't even have an organization at the time, I found it because the homeowners found me. Nobody would know it was unethical and illegal practice. I also want to share that for some time I've been working in East Tampa, doing cleanups, rehabs, all of that for seniors and disabled persons because so many of the properties were blighted. I came to this same meeting some years ago and offered it. You all participated, and I was hoping that the redevelopment or the cleanup practices would ultimately result in redevelopment. It'll draw the collaborative partners to come, because redevelopment was necessary. As the CRP, I believe she just mentioned, on that CRP, it recommends that land acquisition is the last resort. Working with the existing homeowners on the main corridors is the preference. So I work with some families in East Tampa, and I have the first project coming up for any of you that's interested. It's on Lake in Nebraska. One of the main thoroughfares through East Tampa. I have the first site coming up soon. I'd love to come to your neighborhood and even share with you the first project that'll be submitted. Again, Lake in Nebraska, and I'll be developing along the Nebraska corridor. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Speakers.
Good evening, Connie Perkins. First, I would just like to say it would be good if on this side of the aisle, since you're operating somewhat like city government, we had an agenda to know exactly everything that is being discussed. That would be helpful. But the reason I'm here is because as a lifelong resident of East Tampa that sat on this board and was constantly requesting that the issues that the residents put forth for almost 20 years get addressed. And what we're seeing now is the agenda of others, how things are moving fastly to satisfy others. We're not opposed to people coming in and being good neighbors, but what we are opposed to is those that think they can take full benefit of the suffering and the economic conditions of the people that have been paying into the CRA in East Tampa. Now we hear that the possibility of a cigar lounge and being able to get some grant money. And that's what I was afraid of, that the grant money be extended beyond just what is set aside as a normal base. And then now it becomes special provision. People are asking for additional amount of money. So I don't know how that fit into eliminating slum and blight and poverty. I don't know how that deals with Miss Ruth that's been waiting for over 20 years and her neighbors to get some minor repairs in her neighborhood and in her community. What we see constantly is the shell game. We see city staff telling us on paper what's going to happen, but the reality is not coming true. And I can assure you, I would rather for the governor to just break up the CRA as opposed to allowing people to think they can do this like community any longer. We cannot tolerate it, nor can we sit back and allow people that have never came to a CRA meeting before, but because they're in financial need now, they become the beneficiary of poor people's money. It will not be tolerated. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Does anybody else have a comment in person?
My name is Michelle Hardy and for what the children's board, but I was born into the community in East Tampa, so it is a part of my upbringing. And the only real concern that I have today, until I get further information, is are you guys doing assessments to figure out what the needs are? And I just want to know further, like how any type of investment is going to benefit the children.
Thank you for your comment. Anybody else have a public comment? Being done, we'll go online. If you have a public comment, please unmute yourself, state your name and state your comment. Being done, we will continue with the agendas to go into item number 3. Action on approval of the January 7th meeting minutes. Motion by wants to approve. Second.
Manager McCurry does that. Manager McCurry, seven report.
Yes, ma'am.
Does that include, the infrastructure and capital projects charts or just the type of minutes?
It's just a minute. Which chart are you referring to? You mean the projects?
Yes.
It's in the packet, but it's not included in the overall minutes. The minutes are the recorded meeting.
Because you're gonna discuss the infrastructure project.
Yes, that'll be part of the manager's report.
Okay.
Yes, if you have questions, we'll take it up at that time.
Yes, sir.
I said,
I have a question. Senator, when we met last year to do our training, I believe that there was some conversation about committee members, if they are absent more than 2 to 3 times, they're no longer on the committee. Does that ring a bell?
It does.
It does. Who is tracking who is present at meetings and who is absent at meetings?
I am.
You are. Are there any committee members that have missed over 3 times?
No, not 3 yet, but this meeting could make 3.
What is the process after they miss 3 meetings? What happens?
We would notify them formally via email, and then depending on how that conversation goes, we will then move forward with notifying the CRA board that yes.
And that is on an annual basis?
That is correct.
Okay.
right? Is that in writing, sir? That the board knows
They approved and created the policy. Yes, ma'am.
and the board can have that policy?
Yes.
Any other comments on the meeting minutes? Okay, all of the paper approving minutes, say aye.
I,
All the opposed? Done. Carries. Moving on to item 4, presentation starting with 1601 East Columbus Drive, social projects grant request.
Good evening, my name is Melissa Martinez for the record. I am the senior project supervisor for the Tampa CRA. My team manages all the infrastructure projects and the special project grants that goes $500,000 and above. The reason I'm here tonight.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Folks in the back there over here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You got any mic thing? Oh,
So as Ms. Martinez is getting her microphone online, I wanted to just to the members of the CAC, so you all aware, there was a presentation that was done last March, April by our grants team that was before the board and during this past summer approved our commercial grants process. I know that we have some new folks here, and Ms. Martinez is going to kind of walk us through and do a reminder for those of you that were sitting at the table last year in 2024. And then we will follow up with the presentation, but we're going to take time to walk through that process now. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask Ms. Martinez.
Yeah, I just wanted to give you a refresher of what was discussed at that time. And this project particularly is on the group that I manage. There's also a grant, a commercial grants team that manages anything that's 500,000 or 99 and be that. So the first thing. So just as a reminder, March of 2024, the CRA grants team came in front of you and provided you their recommendations are sent in front of the CRA board for approval for the restructuring of the CRA grants, commercial grants, and also special project grants. That was approved by the CRA board. I believe it was in July, June or July. It was approved by the CRA board. And since then, we have received some leads that were on hold and also new leads that we are taking pre-construction, pre-application meetings. The special funding request is any of the requests that does not fall of any of the commercial grants policy. There's a policy online. They have all the different type of grants that the commercial grants team has. If it doesn't fall in any of those categories, then we call them special projects. Once it's called a special project, then we find out whether the request is going to be 500,000 above or below, and then it's assigned to a team. This particular one tonight is about 500,000, so it's assigned to a team. I wanted to show you a little bit of the flow chart of how the process works. So to begin with, we get a request via email online. We have a you can contact us button on our website. You can call, you can come to the office and request a pre-application meeting based on, again, whatever the request is assigned to a team, either the housing team, the commercial grants team, or my team, which is infrastructure and large scale projects. Once it's assigned, we schedule a pre-application meeting. At the pre-application meeting, we provide the applicant a folder that contains the pre-application packet, the commercial grants policy, the special project request documents that gives them information on how the process works, what they need to submit in order to be able for us to review that request. On that meeting as well, they can ask all the questions, and we also ask information from them to try to figure out what is it that they're looking for. Sometimes they don't know, sometimes they don't know the amounts, or they don't know what type of grants they want. So we kind of sort that out at that meeting. After they have a pre-application meeting, it is up to the applicant to submit the application package. When we receive that, we go through the package. Unfortunately, tonight, I have one of my staff that is the one that's in charge. She's in charge, Keith Anderson. She's sick. She's been sick for a couple of days. She's in charge of reviewing the application packet to make sure we have a checklist to make sure that all the items that we're giving to the applicant to submit were submitted. If they pass that initial review, then we schedule a meeting with the CRA manager and our staff, which is myself and Kisa, she's the project coordinator for my team. We review, what we do is at that time, we review that the application is completed. How does the project kind of meets the requirement or aligns with our goals? The CRP, if it's an SAP as well, we review all that. And all that information given to the applicant before they apply, so they know that they need to align their project according to what we have on our CRP, FAP, and the storage package. Chapter 163. So then from there, if everything matches, we look for the CRA manager to make sure that they are also in compliance. Do we have the funding? How much funding are they requesting? How much funding do we have available? How is it going to split it? We discussed all that in that meeting. Once we decided, okay, this is an application that we can now bring to you, for you to take a look at, we bring the applicant to you, which is what's happening tonight. The applicant is going to present their project, they're going to tell you how they align with everything that I just mentioned. And then it's going to be up to you to make a recommendation. Whether you want to move forward with the project, you consider it's okay, whether you want to move forward and, but not with the requirement, whether it's going to be, whether you don't want to move forward. It's up to you. We are just bringing it to you because in the past, we've heard at CRA, our staff, that we were bringing projects to you and you guys were not knowing, how do we get the project here? How do they even qualify to come to present in front of us? This is now we have a process that we get go through, then we're able to then determine to say, this is the project we do for you guys to then. So that's pretty much. Yeah. Yes,
What does PMD stand for?
I'm sorry, project management division. I had it on the first line, realized I didn't have enough, which is my vision.
So just process stuff like making sure to spell out acronyms. But also, can we get a copy of the slides? I would love to see the.
Yeah, sure.
So as it's going through your process and it goes to the initial review before it goes to the CRA manager, is there supporting documentation that can also be presented when they come to CRA that we can see what your thought process was?
They are supposed to include in the presentation. On the 5-minute presentation, they're supposed to include how they align. For us, the important point is how do you align with the statutes, the CRP and the SIP? Because those are the plans that we follow to be able to invest money within the district.
But is there a checklist? Do we go check, check, check? We go to the manager? Or is there a discussion and a meeting held where there's minutes that we can review? Is there anything tangible through this process that can be shared with the board so we know what your thought process was?
We have the application and it's up to you. Yes, I heard that. Yeah, we have the application with every document on this.
Is there a meeting with you that is there a meeting when they have it with the CRA manager since I think you're
Yes.
correct?
Yeah.
So are the minutes taken? So is there any documentation with this process that can be included along with their presentation?
You mean as far as the applications
No,
concerned?
I mean, as far as y'all's meetings.
No, we have the consultation meeting and then
Okay.
we meet internally to just kind of walk through and then we bring it to the CAC.
Okay, so there's not necessarily meeting minutes
No.
when you guys are discussing. Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Any other questions?
Just to reinforce that, yeah, like a summary of the findings, some kind of summary of how well they aligned with the statutes, the SAP and the CRP, rather than maybe just relying on them to present those things. The findings of the office of how well they actually align with the community.
Martinez, thank you for your presentation. I know we're going to start asking questions, but in all realistic conversation, I've been on this board for quite some time now, and my experience is that we are an advisory board, so we advise. We take a vote on a special project, then it goes to CRA. And if our vote is a thumbs down, it goes to discussion and a vote for the CRA, and it could very well be a thumbs up for them. So then the special project is a go. But we decided it was a thumbs down for us. Am I correct?
Yes.
No, you're correct, but that's not something that's in control. That's why we go to the CRA. The CRA said ultimately that's going to go.
That's,
I'm sorry.
I'm just to the board.
So then there was a
We're
problem.
an advisory board, okay?
And then,
I don't understand the point, though. I'm not understanding what
That's
your
what I
point
said.
is.
Okay, so you know what he's saying, say,
I'm done.
okay.
What was you saying? And then,
I was gonna say, when it goes through their office, It is them verifying that they have checked the boxes. They don't make recommendations. They just make sure whoever the presenter is has everything that they need to present to our board. We're the one that has to vet and has to listen and make sure that this is something that we want to approve.
Yeah, but if it doesn't get to us and they had to send them back to redo something, I'd like to know what that was, what was missed. I'm just one of these people that, if, I understand we're an advisory board, but we should be well informed when we make a vote. And in order to do that, we have to ask questions and we have to know exactly what those processes are.
No, what I was saying was it wouldn't come here if it didn't meet all of their requirements.
Right, but there had to be discussion to go from level 1 to level 2. And typically, in my line of work, when we're vetting something, we have meetings and there is documentation to support everything that happens. And since this is government and I work government, that's how our processes work. So if there was more information that was available to us, it just makes us well informed before we vote.
Okay,
I'm sorry, yes. No, he said what I was gonna. We touched on it, it's not necessary. I'm okay, thank you.
so we have other. Any other questions?
Or you have questions, ask me. I want to share that, because I know it's been a while, it's almost a year from the time that the grants team came in and gave you like the whole presentation, so I wanted to ensure that you.
The individuals right here for the presentation, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yes. All right, we'll move on then. To a 2209. Oh, sorry. It's still 6.
It's still, yeah.
Okay. So they're here to give a presentation. If you will please, introduce yourself. Just want to make note that we have a 10-minute, time limit, including questions.
Okay, I was told a 5-minute presentation, so only 5 minutes.
Vice Chair,
Yeah.
find the gentleman who stands up there for us, please.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sure, let's stand, I'll grab that too.
I have a question for clarification, John, if you can. It's one of them. To anyone who can answer. How about that, okay? Agenda item 4A says 1601 East Columbus Drive. I want to make sure that's one and the same with the real estate company building. Is that correct or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, committee members. My name is Drew Newman, and that's my great grandfather. He founded our cigar company in 1895, and in 1953, he moved us to the Overload Cigar Factory at the corner of East Columbus and 16th Street. And we proudly called the East Tampa CRA home for 72 years. And we look forward to being part of the community for another 100 years or even more. El Reloj is the last cigar factory, not only in Tampa, but in the United States. We realized that if we didn't open our doors to the public and share Tampa's historic cigar tradition, no one else could or would. So 4 years ago, in the East Tampa CRA, we restored El Reloj. We have 170 employees and still roll 60,000 cigars every day, but we're now also a tourist destination. We went from having 0 visitors 4 years ago to 20,000 visitors last year for factory tours, our cigar museum, cigar rolling classes, weddings, and other events, including our local neighborhood association monthly meetings. After having a great experience, our visitors often ask us, what's next? Where do I go for a cup of cafe con leche? Where do I go for a Cuban sandwich? And right now, there's nothing in our neighborhood for them to go and sit down. But we have to suggest instead they drive 10 minutes away under I-4 to 7th Avenue, away from the CRA, away from our neighborhood. Because our corner of the CRA has long been overlooked. We believe there's a great opportunity to invest in our neighborhood in a way that reinvigorates it and creates new jobs and opportunities and amenities for our neighborhood. The Sanchez y Haya building which is the white building down there, is directly across from our cigar factory. They were both built in the same year, 1910. And the Sanchez y Hyatt building was built to serve the cigar factory's workers, its visitors, its neighbors. It's architecturally significant because it's the first building in the city of Tampa built with reinforced concrete and rebar. A century ago, the building had a restaurant and a bar on the first floor and a hotel on the second floor. It's got a very colorful history if you're interested, but the building has been neglected for decades. We want to bring the building back to life the same way it was a century ago so that it can anchor and serve the community once again. When it reopens, our intent is for it to look and feel just as it did 100 years ago, with the restaurants and a cigar lounge on the first floor and a hotel on the second floor. Because I don't have much time and I want to leave time for your questions, I'll skip through the design and the floor plan. Happy to come back to them if you have more questions. We currently employ 170 people in our factory and expect to add 78 quality jobs with benefits when the building reopens. We believe that creating an anchor that will bring people to the neighborhood will attract thousands more visitors to our corner of the CRA, and more importantly, spur further economic development in this neighborhood that's been long overlooked. Our project will further development in East Tampa CRA by implementing a major goal of the community redevelopment plan by investing in a project that's in a major commercial corridor, which is Columbus, and just next to the major commercial node. You can see on the upper left, that yellow dot is the factory, the site on the corridor, just next to the node. And even the strategic action plan, which is the image on the right that I've circled, it really seems to call for exactly this type of a project to catalyze new investment, new jobs, new opportunity in our part of the neighborhood. Maybe hard to see from where you are right now, but the CRP and the SAP directly speak to our project. It's an expensive project for several key reasons. It's a large site, 114-year-old building that's in horrible condition. We are in a historic district and have to comply with the best practices of historic preservation. And the city is asking us to make substantial right-of-way improvements. We're very grateful for the support of the city and the county, the state, and even the National Park Service. But we need and would be very grateful for a grant from the CRA to support this work. We've been in East Tampa CRA for 70 years. We love it. It's our home. It's where we want to be. There's tremendous need all throughout, no doubt. What I hope you will do is view this requested grant as an investment, leveraging tax revenue to restore this building that will create anchor in jobs and catalyze economic development of our neighborhood that will generate more new tax revenue that will be plowed right back into the CRA, more tax revenue than the amount of the requested grant. And with that, I want to just stop here because I'm sure you have questions and I'd be delighted to answer them. Thank you.
I thank you for the presentation. Open the floor for questions. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so
Back home.
so
What's your name, please?
Dana Lazarus. So I actually live in North Ybor, which is,
Sorry, neighborhood.
yeah, that's the neighborhood that this is in. And it's kind of like we don't have a neighborhood association.
Trying to restart it.
Yeah, so tried to restart it, but we don't have any restaurant at all in the entire North Ybor neighborhood, except there's one, Renee's. At the same time, La Segunda is like 2 blocks over. But anyways, I'm just kind of thinking out loud right now. I feel like I know that my priority and concern with CRA funding is going to be anything to do with like affordable housing, job training, things that uplift the community and not just necessarily straight up economic development. And that's just my personal like thoughts and priorities, not necessarily. So in the statute, and I think that Allison gave us some really good ideas about how we can be more, can be more. structured in how we decide what kinds of money we want to give out. Like, what does higher wage mean? Like, that was one of my questions, is what are these quality jobs? You said quality jobs, so why are they considered quality? What are the jobs? What will the salaries be? I'm curious about that. So that'll be my first question.
Sure. Well, thanks so much. You're right. Renee's is the best tacos in the neighborhood, and Las Lagunas is right there, 200 years old. The challenge of both those locations is their counter service. There's no seating. So if you want to get something, you got to take it to go and leave the neighborhood. We want to provide a place for people to actually sit down and have a cup of coffee and have lunches there. On the job front, I can speak to you both in terms of our plans as well as our history. Well, before living wage became a thing, our starting salary in the factory was $15 an hour plus health insurance plus 401k contributions and a whole range of benefits, because we believe that paying people start entry level folks and then on up from there is an important way to have a workforce. Across the street, what I think is great about this project is both in the factory and the San Chancy Hyatt building that we have very few jobs that need a college degree. We take people from all walks of life, from all backgrounds, and we really like that, and that's part of our culture. And the jobs across the street and the building are just like that as well, with except for a couple of like accounting jobs that require specialized support. None of them will require a college degree. Many of them are in the kitchen, are in service, either in the restaurant or upstairs in the hotel. And I don't have the prevailing wage data in front of me right now, but I'm happy to provide that. And I think this is a great opportunity to increase the opportunities in our neighborhood, and more importantly, spur more development. There's just so much land and opportunity and nothing happening that much in our neighborhood.
Okay, Dr. Johnson, and if we could just make these questions brief so they're,
You have 16 seconds left.
I know we want to keep it brief, but the ask is $5 million. And I think it calls for weight for us to ask for questions. I'm all for capital enterprise and for development and workforce development. I must ask you about your history of investment in the community. You mentioned that there are 170 employees, I believe. How many of them are residents in East Tampa? That the dollars in which they make from working for your factory are actually spent in the area that you're asking for money from. You may not know that, but I would like to know that. And then secondly, I would like to know about your philanthropy work in the East Tampa area. What organizations can say they benefit? Your family trust is giving $10 million for this project. What has your family trust to given in the future to build up, to eradicate blight, slum, and poverty through various nonprofit organizations in the community? I don't want to approve a project. Number one, we're asking for a special project when we've already said that bars, lounges, clubs, and restaurants will be ineligible, even though it will be a restaurant, but it will also be a cigar lounge, and I'm sure you have an alcohol license to serve, right? So I would like to know those two things. What has the family done to give back to the community? And as you're looking to bring in new jobs, how many of those persons live in this community where those dollars can circulate back into the East Tampa community?
Thank you for the great questions. I don't have the location of our employees coded to the East Tampa CRA today, but we'd be happy to provide that to staff. That's an easy thing to do. Most of our people live in the neighborhood, so some come drive far away. We've got a lot of neighbors who work at the cigar factory, and it's great. We've been an anchor in the factory in the community for 70 years. You asked what our philanthropy is and our relationship with organizations. Over the years, we've partnered with our Cornerstone Ministries, which is our neighbor just a block away. We transformed a vacant parking lot into a beautiful park that's open to the community every day last year. And I was thinking about this on the way in. We worked with Career Source. We placed a couple of trainees for the Career Source program last summer. They just reached out to us last week about having a couple more this year. We've been talking to the CDC of Tampa Bay about having a job fair in our meeting room on the second floor for our neighborhood, which I think is great. Over Halloween, we just mentioned community events. For Halloween, we had a Halloween costume exchange for families that couldn't afford costumes. And then also we made a very large gift to Eve Brown Ministries last year because they were very helpful to us with a land swap in our neighborhood. But I'd be happy to provide a full list. That's just off the top of my head right now. I owe you a report on the East Tampa jobs, and happy to provide a report on this as well through staff. I'm sure they can put it in the record and send it to you.
Hi, thank you for coming. We appreciate your presentation. Is this on? Hello? No, is this on? No, it is not. We appreciate you being here today. I definitely want to second the history of investment for East Tampa. That's a huge thing. As a fifth generation of Tampa, when I saw this come before me in an email, and I saw Sanchez Ugaya, I said, oh, that's in Ybor City.
Yeah.
Right. And so then I started doing a little history check. And I did a quick search, Sanchez Ugaya. And every article that came up, Ybor City, Ybor City, Ybor City. My family's from Ybor City. When they came to Spain, that's where they went. Anyone on this board knows me. I support history. I support restoration. That's one of the reasons I'm on this board, to make sure that we balance that with the new development that's taking place. But as a native of Tampa, when I see that there are funds, $5 million, being asked from a CRA that I know has needs elsewhere, and then I look at the website, JC Miller, and there's no mention of these. None. Zero. Even the apparel that you sell says Ybor City. So for me, that's why the history of investment is significantly important, because there are so many areas in East Tampa that are so neglected that could truly benefit from that $5 million. So I'm hard pressed to be convinced, number one, who set these boundaries? That's my first thing. First and foremost, you are doing what the process told you to do. And I hear you loud and clear. But as a native of Tampa, like you are, like me, we all know it's Ybor City, right? And Ybor City has 2 CRAs. So, unfortunately, the boundaries don't allow them to do that. And that's what I wanted to bring to the committee, is you all need to be aware that these boundaries, this gentleman is forced to take the money from East Tampa, and he's only 2 blocks from Ybor City. Okay, so I've done my homework, and I'm not going to support this in any capacity. And I don't blame you. I blame whomever designated these boundaries and put you in East Tampa, because if I were you as a businessman marketing, heck yeah, I'm going to market the heck out of it as Ybor City. In fact, I even think on your website, it says that you're in the historic district.
We're in the federal and the local historic district.
Or what city?
We are in the Ybor City National Historic Landmark District and the Ybor City City of Tampa Historic District. But unfortunately, with the federal government put I-4 in through our local neighborhood and ripped Ybor City in half,
Absolutely.
we got put into the East Tampa CRA,
Correct.
along with North Ybor and the historic the VM Ybor Neighborhood Association. And so we are unfortunately in East Tampa CRA.
Yes.
But That's where we've been for decades.
And I understand that, but that doesn't mean that we can't work on change.
We would support that because, the challenge is part of the Ybor City Historic District. And people come to us and say, you're not in Ybor, you're not in 7th Avenue, but there's so many historic buildings and history and commercial corridors that's in the CRP and the SAP that are the East Tampa CRA with just tremendous history, but are also in the Ybor City Historic District. And I think I agree with you, it's a mistake that the city should correct.
Absolutely. So I'm glad that these kinds of things happen because Tampa is, there's a lot of attention. There's a lot of attention on Tampa, right? And we are moving by leaps and bounds. I'm driving around the city and I'm just in awe of the changes that are happening. But these things are going to come up and we need to correct them. Because the truth be told is Ybor City CRA 1 and Ybor City CRA 2 should be funding this project.
Yes.
And that's it.
We would support moving into Ybor City CRA.
Okay, we just have to have, okay, I know there are a lot of questions, but we are on the first presentation and we have a lot to get through on the agenda. It's not.
Our comments are limited, theirs are.
Let's see what happened next. And then just.
Great, thank you, Diane Ziegler. I don't know, I'm really excited about this project. When I saw this and I knew it's preserving historic preservation, that building is slum and blight. If you walk by it, it's been horrible for years. The police stickers were up there. There was a lot of illicit drug activity going on there. And the fact that your company is Jason Newman is preserving other areas right in that little cluster, like the park was built. I read that the bats were preserved. This is phenomenal. This is about sustainability, resiliency, saving our the bats are important for food production. And the fact that this is going to bring tourism into East Tampa is really, this is like a rocket ship going off because people say, well, this is East Tampa CRA. It's above I-4. It isn't a CRA. So you can mince words around that, but to create new jobs are needed to provide housing. So you have to have income to buy a home. 78 new jobs. I served on the economic development subcommittee for years and it's so frustrating. We let vendors walk away from the table. This is sad. Here you are, ready to invest in the community. This is phenomenal. And also the jobs, it's not just the 78 jobs. Remember, for everyone here, economic development is manifold because you're going to have laundry services, you're going to have food services for the restaurants, transportation, people need Ubers. I mean, the list goes on and on. Flowers, whatever. So there's so many other businesses that are catapulted from this investment. I'm totally in favor of it. I will make a motion tonight to spend the money on it. It does sound like a lot of money, but it is a slum and blight building. If you go by and look at that address, 1601 East Columbus Drive, you'll see. And this is phenomenal that someone wants to step in and preserve this building and revitalize it.
Thank you.
Okay, we aren't going to take more questions. I just want to make a note. For our staff, we appreciate you all here and the passion and energy. We just want to make sure that everybody can hear. So please keep verbal comments to the middle so the board can hear and the audience can hear both of them. Turn it on. Yeah.
Hi, thank you for being here this evening. My question is along the lines of, my understanding, this is a mixed-use building, right? And I think the goal for all the neighborhoods in the city of Tampa, really everywhere, is for us to have neighborhood amenities so we don't have to drive to another location because that's financial leakage, right? Every time we have to drive to another neighborhood to get a slice of pizza or to get some ice cream, that money does not stay in our neighborhood. So ideally, we want to have mixed-use buildings in our neighborhood where people can walk to, bike to, and we can spend money and it stays in the community and it increases our TIP funds, which currently the TIP funds are being even when it's available for all of the East Tampa CRA neighborhoods to use, so it's not allocated to just certain neighborhoods. I believe that part of your mixed use vision for the space is also to have an inn. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So, the best practice in historic preservation or just returning a building as dilapidated as this one is the way it was 100 years ago. And so we're fortunate we've got old photos and records, and you can see how dilapidated it is on the outside, all boarded up. Old photos and records of how it was 100 years ago. It was an inn. It was where visitors to the neighborhood, to the cigar factory, stayed on the second floor and they ate and they drank and they relaxed on the first floor. It's a modest building on the inside, doesn't have a lot of ornamental details, but that reflects the fact that it's a utilitarian space meant to serve was then an industrial center. And so the idea is if people coming in now who want to visit, they want to stay, they want to eat, they want to have a cup of coffee, and there's no place for them to go. And we're sending them under the bridge to CRA 1 to go right now. And we think our neighborhood deserves better. And we think that by restoring this building, it will catalyze further development around our neighborhood, creating more jobs and more opportunities and just giving the neighborhood the respect and all the neighbors that live in it, all the respect that everyone deserves.
Thank you again for preserving history, because if the stories aren't told, then it gets lost.
One question. Can you go back to the slide that breaks down the Excel spreadsheet of financing? The financing portion looks like there's a historic preservation challenge, right? Can you walk me through all of that? Do you have to meet certain criteria to restore the building in order to attain those grants? And where are you at in the process with those funds?
So that's a great question. And so we're blessed by just the tremendous support we're receiving from everyone. It's really shocking to me as not a professional developer how much support there is for preserving Tampa's history. And it started with Hillsborough County, which has a historic preservation challenge grant program for historic buildings and historic districts. And again, we're the Ybor City Historic District. And for the past 3 years, we've gone before the county board and requested grants. What the county likes to support is structural work. They like to support the restoration of the columns, of the windows, of the beams, of the slab. And so our first grant in 2022 supported just the demolition, getting rid of the plaster that fell down, all the interior walls that were in horrible shape and clearing it out. The 2023 grant that's still underway right now is restoring the building's concrete structure. It's the first building in the city of Tampa built with concrete rebar. It's got 114-year-old concrete in there. It's being patched by hand, remarkably, with thousands of bags of concrete, and that's what's underway. And then the 2024 grant is supporting work on the roof and also some of the storefront windows in front. Additionally, the State Historic Preservation Office, combined with the National Park Service, run the Federal Historic Preservation Tax Credit Program, which we're eligible for because we are a historic building that's certified in a historic district. And so that requires really extensive review and approval by the State Historic Preservation Officer in Tallahassee and the National Park Service in Washington of everything that we do to make sure the work is consistent with the U.S. Secretary of Interior standards for historic rehabilitation. And then if that wasn't enough, because we are in the Ybor City Historic District, all of our work has to be approved by the city's Barrio Latino Commission, and we received approval from the DLC for all of that to date. And so this is an expensive project. We're not professional developers, and so the way we're trying to do it is by cobbling together as much resources we can just to match our own investment and try to do something that's going to benefit the community for the next 100 years.
And where exactly are you in the process with receiving those funds? Have all of those funds from the local and federal entities have been approved?
We received the funds from the 2022 Hillsborough County grants. These two grants are underway and they're approved by the Board of County Commissioners, but we've not completed that work, so the funds haven't come in. The federal historic tax credit is a 3-step process. We've gone through the first 2 steps, but it's all reimbursements, and so that will come in at the end of the process after everything's already there. But as non-professionals developers, we're just tremendously grateful for all the support from the preservation agencies.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Let's be sure.
Why are you financing anything? I don't see loans in your finance stack. And then I do have another question. If this, and this might be more for Cedric, if this isn't allowed under special project grant criteria, ineligible applicants include restaurants and bars. If it's not allowed, why are we even considering? But I do have the financing questions.
So in our financing staff, we don't have $10 million to invest in this, but we have a formal commitment from the Bank of Tampa to loan us those funds, and we will pay it off over time.
Okay, one second. Okay.
I guess my question is, I don't see anything up there from any of the, are you working with Altura or any of those other cigar companies or factories that they have that are on 22nd Street of that family? What about the Cigar Foundation? Is there anything nationally where you can go and get money from? I don't see anything up there from the city of Tampa. They're not contributing to you. So I think there are other ways and that you can get additional funding before you come to us. Have you gone to either 1, 2?
I would love to.
If you haven't, I would suggest going to them before you come on this side to ask for this type of money when we need places for, as she said, slum and blight. We need homes first in order for the workers to have some place to sleep. And the other thing on that is the fact that I appreciate what you're doing, but you're competing against your other fellow cigar manufacturers that are right here in Tampa that have been here even longer. And then what's the guarantee on the health side of that since that building is bat infested?
Those are a lot of great questions. So the first is, we would love to, if we were part of CRA 1, Ybor City CRA 1 or 2, we would present in front of them, but our location in our entire neighborhood, North Ybor, VM Ybor, are in the East Tampa CRA for reasons that we don't know, and maybe someday we'll change. In answer to your second question, we've been partners with the Puente family for 30 years, but they don't make cigars here. There are factories in the Dominican Republic. Our factory here in the East Tampa CRA is the last traditional cigar factory operating not only in Tampa, but in the United States. It says their factory on 22nd Street is offices. Answer to your third question, we've been grateful for the support of Hillsborough County and the state and federal governments. But our meetings with the city of Tampa, it's been presented to us that the CRA program, it is the primary way to ask the city for its support. I'm not an expert in CRA, but I certainly know there's tremendous need in East Tampa. And my hope is that the tax bases can support lots of needs, and that supporting one project will not include other projects, that there is funds, and I believe our project is scheduled to be funded if it's approved in the out years, not this fiscal year, but the following fiscal year in part, and then this fiscal year after that. And my hope is that the budgets for those out fiscal years can fund a tremendous range of needs for East Tampa, because you're absolutely right. There's no doubt there's tremendous need all throughout East Tampa.
All right, and so just one more note, again, just note, again, please keep the verbal comments down. We just want to make sure that everybody can hear everything. So my comment is that I'm not necessarily against the the scope of the project. My concern is this, the request for funding, for this area, and, definitely agree with Lieutenant Knight for explaining, to the board how, how just the funding works and how the fact that it's just separated, even though it was a part of the cities separated by the state project. But $5 million, that would be the greatest contribution would have come from the CRA, more than the federal government, which is 2.5 million, and way more than Hillsborough County. And in East Tampa CRA, it's funded by the residents, whether you own, or whether you rent, you're paying the property taxes that fund it. So without hearing specific and other concerning things that I didn't necessarily hear, yes, completely agree with having job fairs and support for getting post jobs, but didn't really hear anything about a commitment to hire people from the community that are contributing the tax dollars that will be funding this. So that's my large concern, not necessarily with scope, but the fact that the cost is going to be borne by people that may not even financially benefit from this project. And
City, if you can respond and just say, as so long as the city staff permits it, we'd be delighted to give preferential hiring to our neighbors in East Tampa. I think we do so on an informal basis already, but I'd be happy to put that in writing follow-ups to the staff. But
I'm gonna do.
okay.
Just gonna the state then.
So-
No, this time, sorry, the state.
Okay.
I'm sure that happened first.
Yes. Brent Tate, Jackson Heights Neighborhood Association President. First of all, I'm definitely going to support Ms. Henderson and of course Reverend Lieutenant Jeffrey Johnson, comments here tonight. Also being a 31-year employee of the Market Cancer Center, I'm definitely not going to support smoking. Also, we talk about amenities. I'd like to have a fresh cup of coffee. I can't get that. I've been this is my third house, my third location in Tampa, Florida, East Tampa. I love it. I like a fresh cup of coffee. I can't get one. I have to drive to the Wawa at I-4. I don't have a place. We don't have a place. We don't have a restaurant. We love a restaurant that will give us a fresh cup of coffee. We don't have one. We don't have one. And someone said something about drinking, we selling booze in there. Oh, I'm not gonna support that. I'm concerned about the workers. I'm concerned about the owners. What have they donated to East Tampa? What have they been in East Tampa doing? Cleaning, helping Miss McCaskill with her cleanups, helping the schools. I don't know. What have you guys been doing? Thank you. Things like that. That's the problem when organizations are coming to us for funding. What have you been doing in East Tampa prior to asking us for funding? That is so important. We don't have things. We don't have a store to give us fresh anything. We're not protesting. We're putting it out loud.
I agree.
I think that's all I have. Yes, sir.
Okay, this question is really for Mr. CRA staff. There's an unanswered question out there, right? And it is really about the eligibility of this project and whether or not we can fund it, right? Just based on the description from page 6, item number 4, does it fall under the auspice of bar, lounge, club, or restaurant derived no more than 50% of their income?
Good evening, Senator McCurry, Senator CRA Manager. To answer your question, I'm going to conclude with a few comments, but to answer your question, Mr. Carrington, yes. Bars, lounges, clubs, and restaurants deriving more than 50% will be ineligible. We don't know. Correct. So we don't know that at this time.
So let's say hypothetically, they have an opportunity to get back and answer the questions that we all have general concerns about, right?
Yes.
Could we suggest a lower amount?
Yes.
We could recommend a lower amount based on the feedback.
So there's,
responses that we have,
right,
right?
so there's two things that, you know, we need to move forward. One, determining whatever that amount is gonna be. I know the request that is in front of you is at 5 million. Does not have to be that. But this is the process that we have. It's been approved by the CRA board, last year. So, you know, if you all counter with something or whatever that recommendation is to move forward, we did move forward with that CRA board. There also is a waiver that needs to be, because the request is over $1 million. And we would also need you all to approve that. That's part of the package that you received, prior to the meeting. And also, because of the amount, it also will trigger for community benefits agreement. We have done that for other cultural arts institutions, primarily in downtown, because of the amount of the funding. So, for instance, we've been in process for months. We're doing one for the Strass Center. So, and then that is derived members from the community that will sit in and have discussions about suggestions about what they would like to see before that funding is actually approved.
May I respond to one question that was just asked? Ma'am, you were asking about our involvement in the community, and it reminded me that we've been working with Lomax Elementary School, a beautiful school on 26th Street for a couple of years. I don't have a copy of the East Tampa CRA map, so I can't say for 100% certain that it isn't the East Tampa CRA, but it's on 26th Street. And this year, we just finished redoing their library and redecorating it. We took like 10,000 photos of all the students who were with the librarian and given it to their families, and have been fulfilling the principals and their staff's wish list for the past 2 years. It's not on our website. We don't really talk about things like that, but it's a beautiful school, and it's one of the ways that we love being in our neighborhood.
Said this year, what
Yes,
about,
ma'am.
what about 4 years ago?
4 years ago, we were not.
What about 10 years ago?
4 years ago, we were working at Academy Truck, which is our neighbor, in East Tampa CRA. It's been a long time supporting Academy Truck, and done a lot of work with them. The Lomax relationship began 2 years ago.
Okay, so last,
No, I still have one more thing I'm sorry.
My name is Kim Medland. I am here representing the Gaming Neighborhood Association. We're actually in the neighborhood to your west. And I need to say, whether we like it or not, I-4 split our section of Ybor from the sections of Ybor that are south of I-4 that are in CRA 1 and 2. So whether we like it or not, I've lived technically in East Tampa for over half of my life. And we've all paid taxes in East Tampa, and we've all done that. I don't feel like this project should be penalized due to the fact that it's Ybor. It's part of the East Tampa CRA. And I can say without a shadow of a doubt that when no other business or company would support our neighborhood association, JC Newman stepped up. They have, for at least the last 5 years, given our neighborhood association a place to host meetings, a place to host events, a place to kick off our celebration of history every year, all for free, all just with the.
I'm sorry, but can you please just make sure that there's, the type of public comments was at the beginning of the meeting. So we ask that please, there are no comments from the audience. Again, that we do passion and everything, but we need to make sure that public comments are in the public comment section, and that folks are allowed on the CAC are allowed to talk.
I have lived in East Tampa for over 25 years. I can say that I have had many, many neighbors who have worked at JC Newman over that time. The fact of the matter is that this business took a look at a long neglected property, a structure that was truly the poster child for slum and blight within East Tampa. And instead of petitioning to tear it down, actually purchased it. And then started an extremely expensive renovation effort to bring it back and to save a little bit of our history. history that is north of I-4. J.C. Newman has been a true caretaker of our history for decades. And, you know, it's our history. It's part of the history of the boundary that we're in. I appreciate the new jobs being developed. I appreciate this presentation today. I will say the $5 million ask is significant. And simply probably not within any budget that this CRA could reasonably entertain. I would be happy to support this at a different scale in terms of a special projects grant, whether that's a $1 million support or a $750,000 support, and understand that as the conversation continues, this is a multi-year project. This is probably a much longer project than anybody realizes, that there's opportunities to come back and continue the conversation. So.
All right, let's have a look at this. Okay.
Oh.
Okay, this next one.
I just want to, it was brought up that we wanted to know how we got to where we are today. That sort of plays into what I started the conversation with, what's the process? So she asked the question, you asked the question, all of us were nodding our heads. I wanted to know how something like this, under the special grants, went from the review process. Again, I asked about the thought process and were there any notes taken? I got nothing. And then it went to the manager. And again, yes, we moved it through, but there had to be conversation because it's going to be a boutique hotel, cigar lounge, and cafe, unless I'm wrong. Is that not what's set up to do?
Those are the three functions, and the primary one is the restaurant.
Understood. But it goes back to the original question that I asked. There had to be discussion because this is glaring at us at 50%, and that's all three of these. So there had to be a discussion. There had to be somebody talking about it that said, we're going to push this through. Yeah. And that's what I want to know. How did we get here? That's the first thing. The process of the feedback is huge. I worry because it's East Tampa. Listen, it's in my heart, it will always be Ybor City, 5th generation. That is Ybor City. Period. I don't care what you want to color it. I don't care what lines you want to put where. It's Ybor City. Okay. For me, I don't know if any of you have been to the Hyatt Hotel. Well, I have too, and I ordered a glass of wine at $30 a glass. $30 for house red wine. So when I see boutique hotel, cigar lounge, and cafe, that's not East Tampa. How is that benefiting East Tampa community? That's what I want to know. I love this project. I'm all about history. My grandmother rolled cigars in the 22nd Street U-Haul, okay? And I used to walk from OLPH to her. I am all about this project, okay? But for me, I want to know how is this benefiting East Tampa? How? When you're looking at a boutique hotel, cigar lounge, and a cafe, I know what I spent in Hyatt Hotel. And I know that you're going to follow that, maybe not as much, but $30 for a glass of red wine.
In Ybor City?
Okay,
So I don't know. But I got tons of questions. So I have a question though. This is a first presentation, correct?
Correct.
I don't know the rules. Can they come back? Because I heard provisional. I'm not opposed to provisional. Certainly opposed to $5 million. What is that process for us? Because I think some of us still have a lot of questions.
So,
oh yeah, I'm sorry, but before we do that, this is going on too much. I'm talking about interruption. There are comments that are being made that the majority of the CAC members agree with, that they are being interrupted by members of the audience. Members of the audience that are served on this board. I will not support you being interrupted by audience members. You're on the board, and I don't want to support it if you're not a member of the CAC. Or so we need to be respectful when people are saying a comment that you agree with or that you disagree with. Not saying that you don't have the ability to express yourself, but the members that are speaking, even as you agree, are being disrespected when they're interrupted by comments from the audience. And this is the third time that I've made this announcement. So please, if you want to respect the process, you want to have a smooth meeting and make sure that all the comments are heard because they need to be heard. You need to make a motion, you need to take action to the community. It needs to be respected and order. Thank you. Just Craig.
So East Tampa is the first CRA to
Enough, the fact that there are individuals in the crowd that have an opposing view of an individual on this board, we all have opposing views. It is not the place to take an adversarial approach to somebody that has an opposing view. That is why we're here. That is why we're here to have these conversations. So a little respect for the people up here would be greatly appreciated. And if not, then we need to look at ways of ejecting people that are disturbing the process.
Thank you. So East Tampa CAC is the first one to hear the special projects request from a private entity within the CRA. We had in West Tampa, and many of you may have heard it, there was a request for a dollar amount related to the Riverwalk. That was an internal city request. This is the first time that we're hearing this. And if you recall back to the January meeting, I mentioned that we're going to have several special projects and other grants that are going to be coming before you all here this year. Now that we've gone through the restructuring and now that the applications are coming through and being reviewed. Where we go from here is up to you. We have to, and we will take it to the CRA board. As I stated a few moments ago, what we'd like to do, or what I'd like to do, either move forward or not, is to either come up with an amount that you all feel comfortable with, and we can have conversations with the applicants because there's also a waiver because the request is over $100, and that does trigger a waiver so that they don't have to go through an RFP process. And we did the same thing with the Riverwalk, West Tampa.
So technically, if we don't vote in favor of this, it goes to the CRA board, they could approve the $5 million. So it'd be better to provide some form of recommendation at a lower amount so that they are in line with what we suggest, correct?
That's correct.
However, we have the opportunity to go to council to voice our opinion before that vote. So if we're opposed to it, then we should, as a board or as a citizen, make it clear to the CRA board what our feelings are. And I'm here to tell you, I've done that several times, and I've been able to sway council people to change their minds about certain things.
Quick question. So as a matter of record, will the CRA board or the city look at the recommendation that comes out from us?
Yes, that would be articulated.
Historically, has that been weighted input for outcome of a decision?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Might be helpful if you were to give us an example of prior special use grants that the East Tampa CRA funded, just to give people a starting baseline of money, because I do believe that in the past we gave special use grants to Solita's House and the pharmacy that I believe is on 40th Street. So if you can just explain like what was that of grant money, I think it was $3, I could be wrong, but so maybe be like a launching pad for us to look at numbers and go from there, because this obviously is the first time we've ever been faced with such a large amount. But it might be good, and I think the largest we've ever had was the skill center, which was 500,000, which we had a very long drawn out process, but eventually it did work, and it has been proven to help the community. But maybe if we start there to show how those programs have benefited the community, like Solita's House, what they're doing for East Tampa, and what this pharmacy is doing for East Tampa, and what the skill center is doing. Maybe we can start conversations there and move forward.
So what Ms. Martinez is representing, First Wellness Hub, is on 40th Street. They were approved in 2023 for a commercial grant for interior and exterior renovations. And and I believe they're almost complete with that process. There are some things that they were still working on related to permitting and the like. But and we actually won, and I shared the trophies at the last meeting through the Florida Development Association conference that they were recognized for that work in their effort in developing a night club. The other one is Salida's house. That has not moved as far. They have not formally submitted their application. And so that final determination has not come to the CAC, and the amount is a lot lower than it would be considered a special project because it's below $500,000. Skills Center members that are here, some folks were on the tour when they were going through the construction process, and it's been a vast improvement on that area, 22nd, North 22nd, right below Hillsborough Avenue. And that was right at $500,000. But as I say, this is the first time that we're having a special projects grant come before you all and this amount.
All right, so, okay, I just do want to note that there's been a lot of comments, and if we want to take action to actually make a difference, then somebody needs to make a motion. If I cannot make a motion, just want to make sure you know there's a lot of comments, but I think it would be good to make a motion so we can take action on this.
When will this go before the CRA board?
In a perfect world, it would be March.
My suggestion for this will be the questions that we asked. I would like for those to come back with answers before I'm comfortable to make a suggestion. If those come back favorable, I would suggest that we would not give more than the federal government, that it will be at $999,000, under $1 million, and that will be appropriated over 3 years based on the metrics of them making sure that their liquor sales is not over $500,000. And we have to be able to evaluate that. We can't just give out blanket money at one time when there is a system right here to make sure, and that protects your organization as well. And the reason why I say it needs to come below that threshold, because I still don't feel comfortable of knowing the impact that is made for all cultures in East Tampa. That is my concern. There are various cultures in East Tampa. We know East Tampa is not all Black, it's not all brown, it's not all white. I would like to know how that has benefited the entire East Tampa community over those years. So I think there are a plethora of questions that went out today. I would like for this to be tabled to March if possible. And if they come back with favorable results with the questions that we've asked, that would be my recommendation, to be under the $1 million threshold, under what the federal government has given, and then the metrics are received every year in order for refunding.
Well, you did very good motion, so yeah, great motion. I just want to note that, so the next CAC meeting will be before the next city council meeting, so just.
Should I make a motion?
Yeah, please make.
I would like to make a motion that all of the questions that we asked tonight will come back to our March CAC meeting. If it is favorable, the request will be for $999,000, which will be appropriated over 3 years based on the organization being able to verify that the liquor sales do not exceed 50% of their profit.
Yes, exactly.
Can't support that, but I do support a very basic preliminary motion that we're all in agreement to have further conversations about this project based upon what is brought back to us, and leave it at that. And then based upon the information we get, then we can put more make more parameters around it. I think if we put it in a box right now, it's still too early. So I think if we should just make a preliminary motion that we agree to hear more, to continue this conversation, and to request more information so we can make a better informed decision. And I highly encourage everybody to do their research before the next meeting, talk to people that are all over the neighborhood to understand more. I think we should do that now. I think that we're getting too ahead of ourselves to put restrictions on it at this point.
I think strategically, so I get it. So I rescind my motion. I rescind my motion for them to come back in March with the answers to the questions that we have asked for further discussion.
Right, so I make a motion that we agree that we will entertain.
He rescinded on the floor. Let him. So by me rescinding it and correcting it, then it has to go for a second. If it's not second, then you have the opportunity to make your.
I think you said and I said your motion.
So you said that you made a motion.
I rescinded with clarity that it comes back in March with the answers to the questions that we asked, and then we'll have further preliminary conversation.
It's the motion that I was gonna make, so we're on the same page.
Okay, all those second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Aye, motion's carried.
We only said.
May I ask a clarifying question? I want to be responsive to the committee. I want to make sure I have a list of all the questions that you'd like to see in March. If I read it back, I wrote down 3 buckets. I want to make sure I didn't miss it. The first one is jobs. I heard questions about wages as well as the location of the residents. How many of our current employees live in East Tampa? That's one bucket. The second is I heard a detailed list of philanthropy, particularly in East Tampa over the past many years. And then third, I heard a request for a hiring preference for East Tampa residents in the future that's permitted by the city, which I'm sure they can clarify for. Are there other questions in addition to those that you would like me to add to the list? Or perhaps this be funneled to the staff and then staff could send them along after the meeting and then I can make sure they're responsive.
So just one thing to mention that it's above $1 million, you could come up with a community, right?
Community benefits.
Benefits agreement. So that can be made below, like, well, it doesn't necessarily have to be in the.
Right now, the threshold.
Investments that are 500,000.
Sorry.
For the community.
Investments that are 500, funding investments request that are $500,000 or more. Will require this agreement.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. So we're gonna move on to B. So thank you for your presentation. Look forward to seeing you again in March.
Chair, sorry. Cedric,
Yes,
if
ma'am.
it's, if hypothetically it's reduced to what was suggested in terms of the amount, does that get rid of the waiver? Does that get rid of the community benefits agreement?
Yes, if it's over $1 million, we have to have the RFP.
But if it's under, he suggested 999,999.
Right, if it's 999, that will
That removes all.
remove the waiver, yes.
Thank you.
It doesn't remove, sorry, let me just clarify. It doesn't remove the CBA. The CBA will be $500,000 or more. Yes, it will require for us to submit it to me.
Oh, it would,
Yes,
but not, well, so he said there were 2 things. There was a waiver and there was the CBA. What I thought I heard.
So the waiver is for $1 million or nothing. So if it goes below the $1 million, there's.
Understood. I got you. Thank you.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
you.
So we're gonna move on now to item B in the presentation. That's 2209 East Lake Avenue, land assemblage.
Good evening. Again, members of the East Tampa CAC. Items B, C on this evening's agenda related to land assemblage. Let's hold it. In 2020, the East Tampa members of the East Tampa CAC made the recommendation and voted to support the purchase of a building on the corner of Lake Avenue and 22nd. It's been affectionately known as the Gator Building. In your package, you may have seen the memo that was written related to that. And as you know, also we've said that we're going to be aggressively looking for opportunities to assemble properties to continue to move forward with the build out of this specific site. We have the opportunity at this point in time, after some pretty extensive conversations over the last year and a half, to acquire the property here at, I believe the address is 2209 East Lake Avenue. And then there is a residential property right behind it. This is the liquor store that, and members of the East Tampa CAC that actually went on the Saturday. We did the ride along in 2023 after we had our first CAC member training a couple of years ago. And then there was another that was brought to our attention about trying to do something to procure that location so that we would have more of a larger footprint to redevelop this site, and the Gator building being the cabinet site. So with that being said, for the purposes of this, I did put them on the same info, save a few trees, but we're also, would like to receive a recommendation to move forward with the purchase of these sites for a total price not to exceed $650,000. When we talk about slum and blight, this is a prime example. I've heard the strategic action plan mentioned so many times this evening in our community redevelopment plan. This site, there are renderings that are in the strategic action plan as it relates to the possibilities of what it could be, and opening it up. And we're talking about neighborhood commercial corridors and redeveloping those sites. I think this is a wonderful opportunity to do, and with the other previous lots that we've assembled, as we're looking at potential, we have to have some more parking space to do what we need to do. And ironically, we are probably going to be coming back to you as a staff and with our planning department or representatives from our planning department to talk about some of the potential possibilities in that space, very similar to what you heard last month related to 12th and Osborne, and what we talked about at the Palafox site. So this will be primarily 2 residentials, and now we're looking at a commercial opportunity. So I will yield for any questions you all may have.
Square footage of the lots.
Good question. Martina, do you know that right now?
Cedric, is there, your team did such a fantastic job with the church site.
Yes.
On gathering community input. Yes, on gathering community input and not just hearing from us, but hearing from the folks that live in the neighborhood, right? So once you get a better understanding of this, would you be committed to doing that as well? So that you can hear from the neighbors and hear from the folks that are directly impacted by this development, so that you can get their feedback and they can participate in the conversation, because that was very beneficial on the church side. And the fact that you took the time to hear from those folks and allow them to provide input was meaningful. So I think, to continue with these land assemblages, I think it would be beneficial for all of us to continue to work with the community at large and invite them to those town halls, allow them to understand what's going on and provide input on what they would see beneficial there.
So thank you very much. So with our policy changes and updates that were approved last year, we are required to have engagement sessions. So outside of the CAC, we come and, the presentations made, but we also will advertise and hold engagement sessions related to parcels. We'd like to do, and I would venture to say we've probably done more engagement than any other department or agency in the city of Tampa.
So Carlos, we're going to answer your question on the square footage. So for the liquor store, it's currently 5,227 square feet. And for the residential property behind, it is 4,792 square feet. That's what. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Taylor.
It's already been answered.
You said something about a parking lot? Would one of the residential lots need to be parking? Is that what you said?
Well, if you look at it, one of the reasons I believe that the location was not successful and it changed hands several times, it was a grocery store and other things. There's only a few on-street parking here spots. There was a property here, and then a residential property here. So there was no opportunity for individuals to park unless you parked in one of these 2 or 3 designated spots. So that was a challenge, and it would turn over. The business turned over several times.
Is that liquor store
Is it
open?
closed?
It is.
It's closed.
No, it is open. It's operational. Yes.
Yeah. So by us purchasing that, that will close that down.
Right. Okay. And I need to remind those of you who were at that CAC training we did in January of 2023.
Yes.
That was the impetus of this. So we listened as staff, I listened as a manager. There was another parcel that came up on the tour that, as a manager or as a city staff, we can't make people sell us their property, because imagine if they're saying the CRA manager or the interim director is now contacting me and hounding me so we have to have conversations. And numbers were egregious, I will say that. And then, a year and a half later, we're back. So this is where we are. Ms. Taylor.
Did we have the conversation with kings and queens, sir?
I will tell you that,
Mr. Craig scared, so.
no, I'm not scared.
It's all right.
I'm not scared. And I tell this to the board all the time. When we start publicly having conversations about parcels, I know that there are individuals in the room that may go back. People are watching our meetings, they're recorded, they're on YouTube. So
Okay.
I'd rather not.
All right.
But yes, we have explored the opportunity, but if it's not going, if it appraises at a certain amount and then the seller is not willing to sell at that amount, there's nothing we can do. And I'm not going to bring that to you unless I think that it's going to be of benefit. And we're trying to be good stewards of our tip dollars in East Tampa, if that makes sense. It's Karen.
Yes, sir. Can you point out when you're blowing out? Okay, thank you. So here's my question, right? Procedurally for this land assemblage, is this escalation that culminates in this? Have we gone by with and through the community to try to improve what's already there with the owners? And what are we doing as a city for the existing property that's highlighted and already acquired by the city?
So what we're doing there is we have site control, and we're essentially going to be turning dirt at some point and once we've had an opportunity to vet whatever future developments, and so we would come to you very similarly as we did last month with some renderings, and we would say, hey, what are the possibilities? We solicit feedback. Staff then takes that information, members of Ms. Martinez's team and planning, and then we will eventually come to some resolution, and then that's when a RFP is produced to then solicit and partner with the developer to develop the site.
I got a follow on, if you don't mind. I think we ought to be in the business of reinforcing success, right? So what have we done on the 22nd block, everything that's been acquired? And then maybe if we have a successful model, we can look at doing the same thing with that potential acquisition. But if it's just language, then why are we expanding more to not do anything with it potentially?
Well, no, we are going to do something with it. That is the plan. And those suggestions predate me as the manager. And the CAC decided to make that purchase to mobilize or activate the location because it was sitting dormant. But to do what we want to do, we have to acquire more property to have the space. And for all intents and purposes, we want it to be more walkable. Residents that live in Velma Heights Estates, we have an office in East Tampa at District 3. I would love to be able to walk, a couple blocks and partake and whatever that is, if it's a coffee shop, if it's office space, whatever the case may be.
Don't be at the sidewalks.
Yes.
So Craig, with
Yes,
that
ma'am.
being said, I would like to make a motion, sir,
Yes, ma'am.
that
So I can add on to the point that Mr. Gray was saying as far as the CRA headquarters are in East Tampa, it's in the police station. I think as like we know the community that we live in, and we know that interaction with law enforcement can be contentious for a lot of folks. So I think one benefit, an additional benefit, side benefit of this probably have an issue. I think people have a mutual payment if we go through that access to resources that the taxes pay for. I think that's something you should look out too also. Just want to make that.
Okay, that being said, I'd like to make a motion that the two properties
we've been waiting a long time to acquire as much of that area as possible so that we can start building upon or doing something with it to improve the Gator building. God knows, I've been hearing about it since Chair Connie Burton was our chair. I'd like to make a motion that we purchase both parcels up to $650,000. Is there a, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, you got it.
So the motion made, do we have a second? Second, all those in favor, say aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. It's all right.
All right, moving on to staff reports. All right, moving on to the staff reports, talking about each type of project tractor.
Yes, and I'll just, at the same time, in the information you received last week for the meeting, we have copies of the project tracker that define all of the projects that Ms. Martinez, her team are monitoring. And please let me know if you have any questions or ideas.
Moving on to the, okay.
Next, we have commercial branch tracker, and that provides an update related to all the grant applications, whether it's a lead, whether it's they've submitted an application, and what have you, and that gives the specific dates and times and what the anticipated project costs are. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. At the bottom of that commercial grants page, there's a Good Temple Andy Zion Church. I don't believe church is paying for the TIF, so how is it that they're on this list?
So if they've submitted an application or if they were a lead, we're listing that. They have not come before us. So I couldn't even tell you, we wouldn't even know it, but yes, if they are have applied, then we would definitely have a conversation.
As you agree, I'm looking at the track report
Just know.
and I'm seeing, I believe there's several of them throughout the meetings, throughout this year and last year. And I'm seeing, different projects being, recategorized from third place to eighth place to 12th place. And I'm looking at my little baby in particular, the art project. And I noticed, when Mr. Rick Copeland Miller, God bless her dead, she really, cared a lot about the Memorial Park and the fencing.
Yes, ma'am.
And I noticed that the art chart was dropped from number 3, and then the fencing was placed, and thank you so much, Ms. Henderson, for your efforts as well. The fencing was put at that stage, and I'm so glad that worked out. Now that project has been completed, the art project, which was, recommended in, 2020. It was also approved in 2020, and the monies were, placed in 2020, and it's also a high priority. And it's going to be discussed in March. I would like for that to be placed back in space number 3, because staff is gonna come in, and I can give you suggestions. You have asked me to serve on that particular project, and I've been giving suggestions. I'm gonna give more suggestions. Why are we prioritizing these projects based on the age of the recommendation, the age of the approval, and the age of the funding? Is the question.
If I may answer that, since this is my report.
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Okay, so the reason the numbers that you see 1, 2, 3, 4 is not the level or where they're prioritized. We try to push all of them forward at the same time with as many staff that I have with my team. The reason that I make some changes on it and some updates is because I'm trying to separate. I have plan reviewers, I have project coordinators, who are working on projects that are already either being demo or we're already doing environmental resources. So I try to keep those projects together. I have art projects together, I have planning projects together, and that's how it's shown in there. But it has nothing to do with the priority or anything. It's all of them. And when I take them out, it's because for the Memorial Cemetery, I believe that that was completed last month. So when projects are completed, to keep because remember, this list here is not only for you guys for information, I work with that list, my team works with the list, and then that's the way that we can represent and report. Then they're taken out. Once it's completed, we take it out because it's no longer, there's nothing to do for us to do. Does that make sense?
Yes, I have information to send you, concerning.
And that's fine, and I know Mr. Robinson has been working with mobility to be able to make some information, get some data to be ready for the presentation in March. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks.
Not seeing no other question, we'll move on to, second report for housing program update.
Yes, so in your packet as well, you will see updates on the housing renovation and rehab program that Ms. Parks has shared, and I did my best so I didn't have to give you all the tabloid sheets like last month. So we were able to reduce the size, and it shows the number of applications that were distributed during a particular month, how many applications are currently in process, and then how many we have either received or not received. I would venture to say, if you look on the second page, that has a HRRP program details. If you look at the level of applications that are either have been approved or are in process and eligible for the program, and or the number of applications that have not been returned, East Tampa has the highest amount of all those categories. So and then, and if you flip over for the down payment assistance program, and it tells you the number of closings that the East Tampa CRA has supported for home ownership in East Tampa. And I know that it's been popular here recently for folks to say that things aren't going and happen in East Tampa, but when I can look and show you 5 closings, July, August, September, 7 in October, 3 in November, 3 in December, and to date, we've had 4 in January. And for those amounts, some of these individuals that are buying properties within the East Tampa CRA are receiving up to $50,000 in down payment assistance. And that's money that you all, budget during the course of the fiscal year. So just wanted to make sure that you're aware of that. And now that the CRA board has approved the framework for the housing grants and programs across all the CRAs, now each of the CRAs can be able to participate in the down payment assistance and housing renovation program. But there was a question that came up earlier, and I just want to make sure that you all are aware that 30% of you all's budget for the East Tampa CRA and across all the CRAs go towards affordable, attainable housing projects and funds. So just know that. Yes.
Is there a cap on the AMI? Like when you say affordable and attainable, what is the East Tampa CRA's policy on what the AMI targets are for any of these programs?
For the
assistance?
Yes. So a great majority of the folks, depending on if you're granted $50,000, that means that you're probably in that 30% range, and then but we can't go up to 140. Yes, correct. I'm sorry. Thank you. Yes, AMI. Any other questions? And I'll just jump into the manager's report. I want to address the question about the boundaries, and and we're going to be discussing this. Ironically, we have the Tampa CRA CAC orientation. It's going to be taking place on March 10th. And that's going to be the Entrepreneur Collaborative Center in Ybor City, 2101 North Palm Avenue. That's going to be 4:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. We will be sending out a survey to judge and engage how many folks that we're going to have on that March 10th date. That'll be coming out soon. And I think it was beneficial last year. And once again, East Tampa has been setting the trend. I actually came across this book this morning, and it's FY23 East Tampa Retreat. And that was the retreat where we discussed, and it was a 2-day, well, a day and a half retreat, Friday, half a day on Saturday, about some of the properties that we may be interested in procuring. So each CAC member that registers will get a binder, and we will be covering chapter 163 that governs all the CRAs in the state of Florida. We will talk about our grants policy. You will hear from our new CRA board attorney, who will be talking about sunshine. We will talk about Robert's Rules of Order and everything under the sun related to community redevelopment. And we're going to try to cram all that in about 2 hours. So if you can make it, it would be greatly appreciated. And we're going to continue, because we know that there are opportunities to continue to educate and inform our members of our CACs. And this, like East Tampa's had several folks roll on. The other CRAs are taking on individuals and volunteers as well for their CACs. So just wanted to highlight that. At the end of your agenda, there are some announcements related to a meeting that's going to be taking place tomorrow evening in Borrell Park. And that is in partnership with Parks and Recreation and a couple of departments in the city. And the CRA has been invited to participate and listen. So I will be there tomorrow evening. The next CRA board meeting is going to be February 13th. And then your next East Tampa CAC meeting will be on March 4th.
I'd like to add to that. So especially since there was so much conversation about 1601 East Columbus Special Projects Grant, I just want to note that the CRA meeting for that will be on March 13th. So we have our meeting on the 4th and then this CRA meeting on the 13th. And that will most likely be at 9 a.m. at City Hall. So please plan, check your calendars, and 9 a.m. don't work. But if you can't take the time off, take the time off, because not only can we make a recommendation as a board, we can also show up and make public comments. So, and then it goes out to the audience to show up on the 13th to make your public comment.
13 March.
13th of March, yes. Yes.
9 a.m.
9 a.m. at City Hall downtown.
And you take public comment.
I just want to add, you don't have to restrict it to March 13th. They have a CRA meeting every other Thursday.
Yes.
And you can certainly approach them.
It's just once a month.
The meetings are every other Thursday. You have a general meeting, and then you have a CRA, you have a general, and you have a CRA.
Oh,
For instance, this Thursday.
yeah.
We have CRA meetings normally on the second Thursday.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
this Thursday's the general,
Yes.
Yeah.
next Thursday's the CRA,
Yeah.
which is what's the date of that?
That is
February 13th.
February 13th.
My point is, you don't have to wait till March.
Yeah, the same thing, one of the things, because the CRA board is made up of the city council, so.
Right.
We probably the same people, although they're not there organized for, the city council, they're organized for the CRA.
I just want to add a new business item. Back in November 12th, there was a community input meeting on new bicycle paths being created in East Tampa. I know some of our CAC members came to it and provided input. And it's basically runs along 19th Street, a little bit of 18th, and a little bit of 17th Street. And it's a great trail, and it's going to slow traffic down and provide safer routes for the Vision Zero. So
Sorry, I was trying to look up for the dates, but I'm sure Cedric knows. So right now, we talk about land assemblage and what we're gonna do on these spaces. All of that is guided by our city of Tampa's, land development code. So right now, they're actively, redoing that because I don't believe the current land development code is over 1,000 pages, right? So that makes it very confusing for developers to know what they can and can't do. And then it's very confusing for residents to know what they should or shouldn't advocate for. So there is a committee that has been developed of stakeholders throughout the city of Tampa that have been working directly with Abby Feely, who's from Travis's place, to make recommendations similar to as what we're doing right now on what verbiage we should be using for that land development code update. We have CDC who sits on that committee, and so they do represent East Tampa. We have housing development representing that. So now is our time as residents to make sure that you're aware of what they're talking about, because we're in the middle of doing our CRP. And if we want to develop those commercial corridors as mixed use neighborhood commercial communities, we need to make sure that the code is written, that we have certain language that'll support that. Because we did hear at the CRP public outreach meeting a couple weeks ago, a lot of discussion about let's make sure it's not just updated, that we kind of reflect and see what happened in the past. And I did have a conversation with the professor, Trent Green. He said, zoning. A lot of these things we couldn't get done before because it wasn't zone right. So that is an opportunity for us to not go through rinse and repeat again and to make a change and an impact. But we have to be informed residents. And so we have to show up to these meetings. I think the city, I know Abby Feely reports to city council, I believe once a month, too, because there's a third party consultant who is working with her and this committee. And they meet, I believe, twice a month on Friday here at 9 o'clock in the morning. So there's conversations that are going on right now that we need to speak up upon. And Cedric, when is the next community outreach meeting? I believe it's in March.
March.
Abby Feely will be here with that consultant firm to give us their proposal based upon the this committee, of what they're telling them. But we have to also make sure that we're having a say.
I think it's March 3rd, but what I will do is confirm and then send it out to the members of the COC.
And what was the name of that committee?
The Land Development Code update, and it's the Land Development Code Committee, and you can find it on the Growth and Development website on the city of Tampa, and click on that. Our CRA falls underneath that, and you'll see that. We need to get up on that, because this is what happens. We get a little bit sidetracked with some noise, and then there's some big things going on behind the scenes. And we know that we're not always the first people to be notified of these things that are going to impact us for generations. So I would strongly encourage that.
March 3rd,
March 3rd.
7 p.m.
Yes, so that would be, it's going to be here, right, in the center. And just understand your zoning in your neighborhood, because that'll make or break your economic development.
Isn't that incorporated in the CRP? This information? Isn't this incorporated in CRP?
Yeah, then there might be.
This is two different documents?
Will regulate development.
I'm sorry.
We will regulate development. There may be elements within there, but the land development programs will tell you what their allowable uses are.
And the CRP can't supersede that land development code. So they're both important. That makes sense.
So anything else on the new business?
For the community meeting, I guess it was the CRP community meeting last week or something, I missed it.
January 22nd.
Will we get results from that, like a summary of this? There was also a survey.
Yes, they will be sending that out.
No, they said another meeting, remember?
There is another meeting, but she's asking for the results of the survey. So yes, that'll probably come out before the next meeting.
The survey's open until the 10th,
Yes, February 10th.
February 10th.
Yes, ma'am.
So we'll get those results and maybe a summary of the meeting all kind of at the same time.
Yes.
But then we got, there's gonna be another meeting,
Yes, there'll be another meeting.
what, collect them more survey information?
No more surveys. Once the survey closes, that's it. That will be a follow-up meeting that they'll have with members of the community to discuss what the responses were and provide an update as the plan is being built out.
Oh,
I was going to make it 2 hours.
Okay. All right, any other? Yes.
The land development code update, can maybe Cedric confirm whether or not the overlays are being revisited as part of that? As you may remember, we did an extensive update of our overlay. Creating, I think, one of the first areas in the city to allow ADUs and parking reductions for commercial and a bunch of things that are really good. Are the overlays being touched as part of that process?
So we can say.
they are?
No, she's asking the question, so I will get a response for it.
Oh, I thought it said yes.
It might be if you don't show up. Just saying that it's not.
I guess so much there. So we have here. Sure. All right, new business. Let's go advice. All right, with that, I make somebody needs to make a motion, so we need to return. Second. Second.
I second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, have a good night, bye.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, should, if you give me the please.
I will do my best. I will do my best.
You did a lot of work. Yeah, I told him, don't let them touch that. It's clear that anniversary, we put this out first. I'm like, about, you know, those things I've seen actually from my when those overlays. That's my first time hearing this. And this is how you have that meeting. And making sure that it's not really noticed, but you just gotta know to know what's going on. That's how it works. So, that's right.
My grandfather's black, so. So, like, if I need to go study to the work about it. Somebody on this committee has
No, I appreciate it. Yeah. It's okay.
But I don't believe what I need to take, and I want to be here, so I just want to try to call them. You know.
Yes, ma'am.
And you will, and I'll come and.
No, absolutely.
But
I have.
But you make.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that's what.
Have a good night.
Everybody can say, great city, see everybody.
So then,
I got the reading material. Thank you.
I see your attention to. Hey, other parents. Oh, just, okay,
It's from Tampa.
Okay.
No problem.
It's just.
What did you think of that? Yeah, look, one guy that we follow, she had, I need to sit up. It's like, I don't know, but it's like showing them. I made a meeting, that's the best thing to do. I think they were so back. So make sure. I've been. In the. That's what it was.
I didn't understand that. Based on the way the city works, we have to put things up. If you're a private infrastructure, it's over. That moves.
It's not to understand the process. So like somebody would apply, if it's under a certain amount, then our, so kind of thing, I don't understand that. I don't understand the process.
Yeah, but it's a month. They interpret this that boy is there with application, but anything with.
I was kind of thinking about this, like waiver, it's through me off, but that makes sense. If it's over a certain amount, then it makes me have to talk about it and get a vote. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you so much for your professionalism and running a good meeting.
Oh my God.
And that's even starting.
I logged out.
So good.